Right, I have 2:30, so we'll reconvene this afternoon. We have already done our pledge, so we will move on to our review and approval of today's agenda.
So moved.
By Joan, is there a second?
Second.
And Mark. Any other corrections, additions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And then we have 7 consent items. Any questions on any of those? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
By Warren, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mark. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, carried. Cutting on members issue. Warren?
Okay, we had corrections last Monday, 145 in jail. At that day, 44 of them were per diem paying customers. 101 were locals from the 3 counties, 90 from Polk, 10 from Norman, 1 from Red Lake. The number of 10 from Norman is about twice what they usually have.
It is.
So what
I
they
see, that sounds high.
doing down there.
Yep.
The month's average is 142.9. The average for the year was 141, so they're right on schedule or on track there. Per diem income for the months of May was $123,613. And the Monoman was back up to 11, but that's still less. That's about only half of what they're paying for.
Is it 30?
20.
20 beds.
But they're, I keep thinking that they're gonna come in wanting to renegotiate that, but they haven't yet, so we'll see what goes on there. There were 5 in the juvenile center that day. Of course, the secure side is still shut down and will be for some time because they're not getting new people trained in fast enough, and they don't have, right number of people yet either. There were 2 new officers in the jail. One was, 2 new employees there. One was an officer, one was in the personnel staff. 2 resignations, one was an officer again. Secure side probably will be in training. There's 3 to 4 people in training, and it'll probably be 3 to 4 months before they reopens. They're 5 short. They're training, not 3 to 4. 54 new probations, 103 closed, but that closing number included a bunch of cleanup cases that probably should have been closed earlier. LELS is sent notice that they're ready to start negotiating. Let's see. Oh, okay, that's probably, one of the shortest meetings on record, only 39 minutes. That was, you didn't miss much, Chuck. Oh, right. Well, yeah. Let's see, anything else in these notes worth repeating? I had 2.13 inches of rain in my gauge this morning. That gets us over 9 inches from the mid-May till now.
It's a little excessive.
That's a bit excessive. And this morning, just fill in time, I went to a little, what you would call it, meeting with Congresswoman Michelle Fischbach. They had the chamber from Grand Forks, East Grand Forks arranged that, and each of us was asked little issues in our area, so I told her about our shortage of deputies and how that needs to be. I don't know how feds can address that, but need to know. And the other issue, of course, was development of our rural water district at West Central Regional Water District, out of Climax, basically. But she was very receptive to that, and was trying to tell me, you need to apply for funds, because that's what they can do to help out. Anyway, that's pretty much enough for me. It was kind of a slow week otherwise.
Yeah, Lieutenant of Corrections also was certainly disappointed with the juvenile center there, with 5, and I think they had 3 individuals move on just as they had finished their training. So a lot of frustrations in that department. So they're working on that. And then, each month we get the report on the sentence to serve. And I guess I was kind of surprised to see that Norman County had applied for individuals to do work. So that might be something that Rick could look at if there was a particular
use 'em.
job comes up. We certainly might as well make use of that because
I think we use them for tax forfeit property, don't we? Cleanups sometimes?
We'll do all sorts of things, shoveling even.
any kind of projects that's could help with elections or whatever.
Well, probably not that.
We might steer away from that.
Yeah,
Maybe not. Just kidding.
we're a frequent user.
Very good. And then we also had Tri Valley on Tuesday, and again had some more discussions on the building across the street that Tri Valley owns. They got an estimate of about $375,000 to bring that down. So that's not an easy answer, but we did agree to continue conversations with the city if they were looking at any projects for downtown, that we'd be willing to provide some financial assistance. So perhaps that may move on. It's a new administrator now for Corkston, so we'll be meeting with him and kind of going forward with that. But we would really like to see that building not just be given to taxpayers to take care of it, as many of the properties that end up in our communities. So we'll do some follow up with that. And then Thursday, I have Laurel, that's the library board in Moorhead. Mark.
2 meetings, both of them one watershed meetings. I didn't get the email, but one I did get email kind of backdoors and found out their meeting. I missed the Red Lake, but chances are I wouldn't have made both anyway because they were both scheduled same day, a little bit different time, one at 1 and one at 10. So I probably wouldn't have made them both anyway. I guess at the Red Lake, I got an update from a gentleman from Bowser. At the Red Lake one, quite a bit of discussion about possible funding for strip tilling, that type of stuff. Mr. Newhouse was at that meeting. I haven't spoken to him personally, but apparently making requests of the program, and it was relayed that eligibility could possibly be for strip tilling through the one watershed under the reducing nitrate and phosphate runoff type thing. So a little bit of work there going on. There was a little bit of discussion about that after the meeting at the Middle River Snake, but Middle River Snake was really nothing, just update on projects and fund where projects were and funding, so forth and so on. So nothing earth shattering in either one of those. And 220 project, 9 inches of rain.
How
Something's
many?
well, 9 inches of rain.
How
according
many
to
in
Warren.
Warren even more?
And there's been no work there for at least 8 to 9 days,
Good.
and it's a mess. And the township roads are getting beat up because traffic is like ants out there. They're going everywhere and anywhere. We had to pull a truck off a road after the rain here on Saturday. Pulled in on a township road and realized he was too heavy and was going to have a problem. Well, he starts walking and comes to the nearest farm, and guess who's out there pulling him out? It's,
Mhm.
I don't know. One, we can't control people and reading detour signs, but I think the detour signs, instead of a little detour sign this big, it's got to be this big.
Flashing to get it.
And it's, and I realize it's, how do you contain people and movements of vehicles, but it's bad out there, and it's only going to get worse the longer this project goes. It's only going to get worse, and then we're bidding on another project here today, and more confusion and more problems. So, and I feel sorry for the townships because I've noticed Sullivan Township is out blading almost every week because of the amount of traffic. People are going, like I said, everywhere and trying different routes to save 5 minutes and, flying down the gravel roads. And um, so it's a real problem. So that's it.
Do I understand that there's going to be some meeting on July 8th?
We're still trying to set it up. I responded to Rich. I haven't heard anything back yet, but um, yeah, which one? I responded to Rich, possibly at the one and only. They do have a side room there, possibly for the meeting. That's the closest venue to the
That area.
roundabout. So, but yeah,
I'd like to go to that one too, if we make sure I get notice.
yeah. So I haven't heard from Rich, and I just
I
responded.
can talk to him. I'll be in tomorrow, and I can probably set up something too.
That's a Monday, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, let us know.
All right. Thank you. That's it.
Joan?
Okay. So had our Reach and Rural update. We met our project coordinator that we hired with the grant funding that we received. And it seems like the program is going really well in the jail because there's a lot of interest. I mean, the inmates now have heard that there's someone that there to coordinate the resources and what they're looking for, what they need. So, and it's not just inmates that, like, if they go through treatment, that will help their you know their sentence. You're seeing inmates that they know they're going to be in there for a long time, but they're still interested in trying to get those resources and looking for help with their addiction. So um, I think it's going really well, and we're definitely fortunate to have our a nurse practitioner there, which we're one of. I mean, that's not a position that do very often we'll see. One of the comments that was made during our meeting was like, the road that we're on now is rough because we're changing the way things are being done. It's always hard to make changes. And then also we submitted a proposal for the AMC annual conference to present there, because we've been getting a lot of questions and stuff from other counties that heard about the program and are interested in what we're doing and how it's working. So see if we get chosen or not. And then while we were all at the district meeting in Brooks, I think it's with our the presentation from Extension. We're gonna have to look at that when it comes to our budget planning. Yeah, and I was reelected our delegate, so I think thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Huh?
No, I don't mind it. Actually, we have a board meeting on Friday, so I'm headed to the cities on Thursday. I did my monthly radio program, and then after I finished that, then I went up to Thief River, and our kind of our northwest 8 counties that have been included with some of the public health funding that's been coming through, like the foundational funding and stuff. We all met and just an update on, how those programs are going. And we broke into small groups, and we rotated. There were 5 different tables, and each one had a different topic. One was disparities, geography, workforce, mindset, and funding. And so then we were supposed to write down, what are the issues, the barriers, and then also what could be solutions for those type of things. And so, that was interesting, kind of, hearing from other people, of their thinking. And, a lot of times we're all kind of dealing with the same things. So, let's see, I had a DAC board meeting, and we're finally in our financials now that we're back in the positive again. We were kind of falling behind there for a little bit because we had, we're kind of doubling up on for our director, the interim, and then when we hired, and the training. And then also we did lose a client who had passed away. So, we're down with our numbers of clients too, but that's starting to come back up. Then I was in the cities. We had our shack meeting at MDH. And one of the things that we did was we approved the work group for our Foundation of Public Health responsibilities. And Sarah is one of those that was appointed to that committee, and I think she's going to do really well. And we did some more talk in regards to what the infectious disease department is going to look like moving forward, and kind of challenges that we might see coming forward with public health. Had solid waste yesterday, and John will be giving us an update on that, so I won't spend time on that. And then I went to Detroit Lakes, and we had a meeting with the different counties in regards to White Earth. Last week, White Earth put forth a resolution in regards to the water permitting. And so actually right now, what they're looking at is those that have permits currently, they will not need a permit from the tribe for pumping. But if it's a new permit, then they will have to go through the tribe. But then also the tribe is looking at putting together a task force with all the different agencies and 7 counties that, because of their 5-mile buffer outside the reservation, that affects. And there's just a lot of things going on with that, and I don't really know right now what it's going to look like going forward. So, but
Wait and see.
yeah. And then last night I had Union Lake Sarah meeting, and they got their eco harvester, and they haven't gotten the kind of the results they were hoping for that, but they just said they need to get the manufacturer up there to kind of go over through some things with them and stuff.
So they've had it on the lake and
But their problem is with the Eurasian milfoil that is dependent on the lake temperature. So it's got to be, I think it's like 63 degrees or less for them to be able to use the harvester on the milfoil. Well, the problem is that the milfoil isn't real high yet. So, the results are kind of mixed. But then now they did get a grant from the DNR to do the spraying for the other invasive species. But they need to get a survey done of the lakes first. And that survey is going to be about $8,700, I think is kind of what their estimate is. And that's hopefully will be done like the middle of July. But then also, and then of course, so the invasive species are on Union, and then Sarah's been dealing with the Chinese snails. And so they have been working with the DNR, kind of pushing more of figuring out a way to deal with them. But then also now in Sawmill Bay, they've been having issues with carp because carp got through a couple culverts, and then when they got into the lake, it's it's got to be like the culvert then is like 2 feet higher than what so then they can't get back through. So then they've been spawning in. So they've had some Amish coming there and collecting the carp, and they estimate they've gotten between 55 and 60,000 pounds of carp out of there. So it's it's one thing after another. And then one thing too, there was a question about with the Sam, I don't know if you would know, for the assessments for the pumping, that people are saying that it's assessed on both the front and the back lots, and it should only be front lot.
And that is all the Sand Hill watershed. We've talked to April,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to be looking at what they did. They send us the list of who's on there,
Yeah.
so they make that determination, and the watershed would have made the determination at the time who was on there when they determined the benefits.
Yeah, and she said like she was there last
She
time.
talked to us today.
Okay, so okay, good. So, and then this morning I had a conversation with Steve Green, and he's kind of keeping up with some of the boundary issues on property, and so he was just wondering where the county was in regards to that. And I told him that we'd received some funding and we're finding all the permanent monuments and stuff, so getting that done. So that's enough.
I have one more item.
sure, Warren.
At our last board meeting, we approved Brian Evenson and Mike Bird from Neilsville, he's the mayor there, to be members of the water district. So I called Mike Bird and I told him he'd been appointed. I said, if you accept, and I didn't get accept out of the mouth before, he said, I take it. So he's
Well,
really
that's
wants
good.
to be on it.
Good.
So then I called Stephen Slick, who's the engineer from AE2S, who's kind of running things in this formation of the district bit. And I told him about that and gave him the email address for Mike and telephone number. And I said, make sure he gets noticed. And he should be at our meeting on Monday then. He has to take time off from work, wherever he works, I'm not sure, but he's gonna do it. But anyway, we have our 2 members named.
Well, thanks for following up on that.
Now that went well.
Group movement. Anything else? Darren, I think you're up next.
Sure. Give you the notice here. Get you lined up. There you go.
Here's the abstracts for our projects we left. not. So our first item, we opened up bids on May 24th for SP 060, 070, 020, and that's the roundabout at our County State Aid Highway 21 and Trunk Highway 75. The lowest responsible bidder was Gladen Construction of LaPorte, Minnesota, in the amount of $2,683,501.95. And it was under engineer's estimate. So we're looking to approve awarding to Gladen Construction.
Do we have to buy some property there? Is that done?
That's all been taken care of.
Okay,
yeah.
that's done. All right.
Yep.
And this, that, I didn't think that number would be anywhere. I thought it'd be a lot more than that.
I did too. So, they're looking to start week of August 8th and then have it completed by October 1st. So our detour will be
think they'll
going
ever
up
make-
here for,
Those completion dates, I don't know that they ever meet those.
well, I hope so.
Make sure we get the great
So-
big detour signs.
The total
There you go.
project cost, because we've got engineering fees, the county stuff in there, we got land acquisitions, so forth and so on. What is the total cost? The award is for,
The award's a 2.683. I don't have the engineering. I don't know what Witsess had it at, but I guess we can get that for you. I think it was like 150,000, I think, for their engineering costs for designing the plan.
and then acquisition costs.
And that wasn't a lot, there's only a little bit in the northwest and southwest.
And my understanding, the state's paying for the south side of 21.
Yep, and then we did the north. So with our engineering, ours is, I don't know what we have, if we have 50,000 and Witseth's 150, and if we have another between us and MnDOT, another couple 100,000 probably. But we can get you those.
I'm not a big fan of this roundabout, and I understand why and so forth and so on. It needs to go forward. After we were in Brooks for the MC thing, I stopped over on 59 and the continuation of east of Center Street or 21. And sat there and watched that roundabout for a little bit. And it's my understanding this roundabout's going to be about the same size, correct?
Correct.
Watching traffic and trucks navigate that thing, it was interesting. In between traffic, I got out and measured between signs. And going into the roundabout, I didn't measure anything inside the roundabout, but just going northbound lane, going into the first one, because I went west then. I was heading north and pulled off to the side of the road. And between signage, it's about, depending on what signs you're meeting, because none of them are really straight across from each other, but the ones that were straightest across from each other were at 21 feet. And a lot of farm equipment is in excess of 26 to 27 feet, especially bead equipment. And I know that that's a big concern of Mr. Strickler's, is 12-row bead equipment is that wide. And unfortunately, that's the width that comes in. And we're going to have damage up there to these signs continually when people are moving through there. And this is some of the discussion I was trying to have earlier with this project is if we're going to do this roundabout, make it big enough so that stuff can go through it decently. We are in the ag community, and that unfortunately that intersection, unlike the one over on 59, there's no real beat activity out there. 21 is a primary, one of the primary routes to get to the O'Mara piling station. American Crystal uses 75 continually to haul the Warren piling site to Crookston and or East Side, depending on which way they go with their stuff. I don't feel the roundabout is large enough
Yeah, and I
in
guess I
physical
could have
size.
compared them and looked at them before, but maybe it is a little bigger. I can't say 100%, but
So I'm opposed to it. I think I've made my feelings felt before, and I'm not going to belittle it here, but um, the size of it really concerns me for an ag roundabout, and it may fit transportation uh, criteria, but it's not large enough, in my opinion. So
Any other questions?
Do we have to approve this bid? Is
yes,
that a state issue?
yes. I need it awarded, for continue with basically with the project.
Okay, are we kind of running the project?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to proceed with awarding the 060-070-020 to Gladden Construction?
So moved.
By Joan.
I can't say that I agree with the size of the roundabout either, but I would second the motion.
And second by Warren.
I can look into that, Mark, to see what, if they did come up with a bigger design. I mean,
If you could do
there's
that.
been discussion at some point before that I don't know about, but I can look into it.
I know Trans Systems has concerns.
Right. I mean,
And
I would have
Crystal
thought that
Sugar.
they would have taken that in consideration when they were putting this
So
between MnDOT and WITSES, but I'll look into it.
Appreciate that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
I
motion carries. Diesel trucks next.
We have a Columbia Township bid opening? What's that?
That's the third item.
Oh, okay.
We're looking to purchase 3 tandem trucks. They were put out on a state contract earlier this year. The first of the 3 trucks is being delivered to Burt's for our snowplow equipment to be installed. The next one is scheduled for July 10th. The estimated cost was $150,000. The first truck's cost is $150,504. So we'd like a motion to approve the purchase of that from Westernmore Boyer Ford Trucks, St. Michael.
It's a state bid.
Correct.
I'll move.
Is there a second?
second.
Second by Mark. Any other questions? Go ahead, Mark.
This is just for the one truck, correct?
This is one truck that came in. I think they're budgeted for 2025, but because of how long it takes to get them, we got it going early, and it just happened to come in early. So
Did we auction off some trucks?
I'm not 100% sure.
I thought I saw it on stuff.
Probably. So now it'll be at Burt's till in December, the way it sounds, because of the snowplow equipment.
Right. Anything else? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
And
Next.
also, on May 24th, we had the other project that we elect was for Columbia Township Bridge. SAP 060-599-281. That was over the Burlington Northern. This is our rebid because of the first time it was 500,000 over engineer's estimate. So again, Redstone was a low bid as they were on the first in the amount of $2,235,342.50, which was $100,000 less than their first bid.
So still like 400,000.
400 roughly. And Burlington Northern and MnDOT, after discussion for a few weeks, have come up with additional funding to allow us to award it. I don't know the breakdown. I think Burlington came up with 300,000 and MnDOT 100,000, somewhere in that area. So we would like to award to Redstone Construction of Mora, Minnesota.
Was that the only bid?
The only bid.
First time around, they were the only bid also.
There was 4 bids the first round. 3 or 4 the first round. We extended the completion through 2025, and apparently people are backlogged that far out as far as bridge contractors.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Joan, is there a second?
Second.
Any further questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
During the project, the culvert project at the west of 220 on 21, was that been completed and
It's complete.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just the turf grass to be established now, but it's pretty much done.
who's responsible for blading that right now?
It's
Some construction equipment sitting there.
yeah, it was bladed before we left, but now the contractor for 220 is using part of that area for storage. So they've been up and down and they've been pumping water out of it. So it should be up to the 220 contractor.
You might want to put a bug in there or to
Okay. I'll let
maintain,
I'll let the state know.
keep a eye on that segment because if it goes too much longer, it's going to turn into a 10-foot washboard.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll sign, I'll give it to you if you give me the mouse. Thank you.
Can I get Gary's signatures on these before I go? Get them sent out today.
And John, I believe, is up next.
I'll give you the mouse. It's always something.
Keep one.
Two here. I'll need one for Paul's pile here.
A short one?
No,
Okay.
no, this is Paul's pile.
Oh, okay.
Everything you needed?
Oh, I had to. Warren needs this one.
Thank you.
All set?
We're good to go.
All right. Good afternoon.
Did you get one of these?
First item up on the agenda is the Star Insurance. This is for the Resource Recovery Facility for coverage starting later this summer and going through the same period next year. We've been with this company now for, I believe this would be year number 4 with them. I think that's right. I think we've approved 2 before. This would be 3. This would be number 4 now.
Sounds like
That sound right?
You know, it starts to kind of
Blend together.
together, but
Yeah,
this is still an option.
2 or 3.
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, at least it's an option yet.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's this all started because if you recall, MCIT, who was providing the coverage, decided they did not want to cover these facilities anymore. Left 3 waste energy facilities, one of which was us, kind of in the lurch, and then they, for good measure, threw in prairie land composting down Truman, Minnesota, which doesn't have any similarities to our other facilities. But we did hunt around, locate this Mahoney group, and they were able to do what MCIT was unable to do, which was locate insurance interests that would cover us for the high end of the liability spectrum. So this has a higher minimum deductible. It's $250,000, but it provides coverage up to the building value, and that's actually the only reason the rates changed from 23 to 24 is because the building value improved by over $3 million. So that is the only percentage change in there is based on building value. We have in the past elected to take the terrorism insurance provision. We also have to do the binder with Mahoney Group, which they charge that and they roll that all in one package. So assuming we want to go with the terrorism insurance again, which is what we did last time, broke the recommendations into 3. One would be to authorize a binder with Mahoney Group again for the $25,000. Number 2 would be the motion to approve the property insurance with Star. What I did in the updated one I handed out is I inverse number 2 and number 3 because it didn't make sense. We approve the total amount in number 2 and then you add the insurance later when it's already included. So that's the only change I made there. So item number 2 on the updated would be the motion to approve authorizing the terrorism insurance coverage through Star. There is no addendum 3. That's a artifact from last year's when I updated it. And then motion number 3 or action number 3 would be the motion to approve the insurance through Star for the entire thing. It includes the $25,000 and the $9,643 for the terrorism, and then that gets you that total dollar amount of the $283,704 as the premium for 2024, 2025.
What did we pay through the state?
Through MCIT,
Yeah,
we paid less,
yeah.
not much less, but they weren't valuing the buildings correctly. So I don't have the figures
But it's,
in front of me, but they were valuing the building at maybe 65% of the value. That was the nice thing about this group is when they came in, they actually work with these facilities. They knew how to value them. They went through the entire thing. The other thing we get with them is they come through and they'll do audits of us and tell us things that we haven't looked at, things we should check, things that they see as a possible risk.
mhm.
And so we have the ability to control that. And those are things we never received before through MCIT.
On the values, is that a replacement value or market value?
That's a replacement value. I know just in talking with the company that put together our material recovery facility on the front end of it, well, we spent a little over $11 million on. He estimates now was worth about 20, just since 2018. So, I don't know this one went up a couple million, I suppose, over 6 years. That's getting close. So,
And I think the terrorism insurance, it's in today's world,
it was more, if I remember the discussion we did before, it was more about if you have protesters or something showing up out there, some sort of a demonstration, whatever it would be, that may damage the facility or damage operations. That was part of it. Our insurance would be higher if we had requirements or there's penalties for us not providing steam, let's say. But we don't have that. We don't charge the customers if they don't buy the steam, and we don't have a penalty to them if we don't supply it. The other side of things is we have the landfill, so we can't default on our contracts with the other counties for waste service. We would still be able to take them in if this building, this facility was damaged. We wouldn't default on those contracts. We would just take it to the landfill. So that does cut our liability down that way in terms of how the insurance company views it.
I'm thinking.
Okay.
In the coverage,
Yep.
is there, let's say if there was a partial fire, does it cover operations if you gotta do something different that's gonna end up budgetarily hurting you big time? Does it cover that type of stuff?
I'm gonna say it has to be pretty significant because our deductible is 250,000. So
Bonding
what
bill
would do? What's that?
bonding bill failures?
Lack of.
Yeah, lack of. No, it's not going to cover the lack of bonding bill failures. That should be insurance carried by the legislature and the governor's office, not so much by us. But yeah, no, that would be a very specific question I'd have to ask them to do. The insurance packet this year came this way. So in the previous year, I just inserted the one page in there that kind of had the summary. So he called and says, "Is there a problem with it?" I said, "Well, no, it's going to the board tomorrow." I said, "But it would really help in the future if you would pare it all down on one page so it's easier to give to everybody." So he just laughed and said, "Do you need it by tomorrow?" I said, "You're not going to get it to me by tomorrow, so it's fine." Do you want me to check into that though?
That was my.
Not the bonding bill, but partial operations or something like that.
I hate to say it, it's all tied together because if you're having to budgetarily make adjustments, and especially with everything that was going on and having the amount of time and effort that went into it all, and sit here with nothing and not knowing what's going to happen in the future here yet.
But we're talking about the bonding bill again, right?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I was taking as if we had some, like you said, a fire or something on the front end that, hampered operations if there was some sort of gap coverage or something like that to make it work, to somehow rig the system, make it partially operational while you wait for the equipment and the repairs. Was that the question you'd like me to ask?
Twofold question, yes.
Okay.
I think that one needs to be asked of
Okay.
the adjustment clause, but also on the bonding side, because it is a huge adjustment for the facility. It's big. But I'm just spitballing when I throw that out there. But I think on the fire side, if you were to have a partial fire, I think it would be good to ask that up front if they have some stopgap coverage on a partial loss building type that wouldn't impact day-to-day operations.
Like a disability insurance.
Yep. But and I'm sure they do to a point, but what is that dollar amount. And is it acceptable, for your budget, that type of thing, so. But by no
Okay.
means am I saying we don't do this today, because we need to, but might be a question for them.
Yep, I will ask. I'm sure the other facilities will have the same questions, the three of us are pretty much working together on
Yep.
on doing this, and they seem to be very responsive. If there's something that isn't covered, if we want it covered, they'll give us a quote and do it. So they seem pretty open to that.
Thank you.
Okay, we have three items here to consider. Number one is the 25,000 for property insurance for RRF. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Number two, with property insurance with Star Chicago. On property insurance, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve number 2.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Joan. Any further questions, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. And number 3 is adding the additional coverage for terrorism insurance, also with Star of Chicago.
What's that?
Motion that Mark made was for the terrorism one.
Yep. Off the updated one I gave you. So terrorism was the first one that you made the motion for.
Do we need to
Yep.
change the wording on 3?
No, the wording on 3 would include that.
Or 5?
That's why I flipped them, because you're actually approving the whole amount with the terrorism, then approving the terrorism afterwards. So I flipped them just to be,
We got it covered then.
except you haven't voted on the third one yet, right?
We need a motion on it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
Who made the motion on the third one? Nobody.
Mark and Warren.
Let's go back. Mark, are you
Sure.
moving
I'll move on
forward
number
on
3.
terrorism? All right, I will second that.
This was-
Now we will vote officially. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Okay, thank you. Move down here. I also handed out a revised or updated agenda item for number 2
Tip fees?
on the tip fees, and that reflects basically what occurred at the advisory board yesterday, and then I filled in the rest. So just walking through it in preparation for the 2023 budget. In 2022, we discussed raising the tip fees. I recommended raising the tip fees $10 a ton at that point. The advisory board wanted to, because there were a number of things occurring, low market rates for recyclables. We'd started to see some things increasing fast and then kind of slowing down. And some of the steam customers were indicating they might do better. The advisory board recommended only increasing at $5 a ton. And if it didn't work, going back in 2023 and increasing it the other 5. That's what the recommendation was brought forward. That's what county board did. That's what we implemented. Things really didn't improve for very long in 2023. We saw a huge spike in recyclables for about 45 days, and then it dropped off a cliff. We continue to see all the other things going up. The steam customers continued to sit around where they had been, with one regressing. Things didn't look much better. We talked about raising the tip fee, and then an opportunity presented itself with Becker County to bring in additional waste. What they were going to bring in would have resulted in about an extra $800,000 in revenue, which would have been well over what we were looking at, trying to raise the tip fee to cover. We had to wait a little bit, which meant we were going to be doing some deficit spending in that period until we got to the next year. And then lo and behold, when we got to 2023 and started inquiring about updated numbers from them, they started hemming and hawing. And long story short, towards middle of November, they informed us they had made alternative plans and were not going to send the waste to us in 2024. Very short notice. Obviously, we can't go back and change budgets in time for everybody to do that. To say that it was taken poorly by the advisory board, the 6 counties, including Polk, I think it's an understatement.
Sure.
They had been sending 2,000 tons of waste to us the previous year, and we felt that if they weren't going to honor their commitment, we weren't going to honor ours, and we told them to take their 2,000 tons that we were receiving already elsewhere, which created even a larger gap in the budget, about $160,000 to $200,000 hole in the budget. So you're nearing nearly $1 million shortfall. So we had a pretty brutal year last year, budget wise, and by the time we figured everything out and all the other things going on, the changing the tip fee had fallen by the wayside, and that's what I finally got to, and that's my fault. I should have brought this up sooner. But we have talked about it. It went to the advisory board, ran a couple of different tip fee forecasts, and basically settled on, because there are some positive things happening this year. We felt a $5 a ton increase starting July 1 of this year through the end of the year, combined with a few other things going on that might get us by. I told the advisory board we bring that recommendation up to the county board for approval today. And for budgeting purposes, because everyone's now looking at 2025's budget, or starting to, I told them they should probably look at $87.50 as the tip fee next year. But we keep an eye on it. We wouldn't set it, but for planning purposes, that's probably what they should use. I am a little apprehensive when we did budget forecast before and the things started to improve the way they are now before a presidential election. I think that's what it was you were getting a lot of speculation on what's going to happen after the election. That caused the markets to all go up, and then as soon as the election was over, you didn't have to speculate anymore, and it dropped. And I'm a little apprehensive about putting too much on the improved markets right now, that's going to carry forward next year. So that's why I think, being conservative, everyone should look at a little bit higher for next year. So that's my recommendation, at least for this year. On the MSW side, that's the part that impacts 6 counties, would be to raise that tip fee from $80 a ton to $85 a ton. And then some of the fees that don't impact them, I looked at, and that would be, I list them out as B, C, and D. Changing the C and D landfill, so the demolition debris, from $30 to $40 a ton. Contaminated soil, which goes in the MSW landfill, that's usually from cleanup sites associated with leaking gas tanks, underground gas tanks, things like that, tankers that spill. They hire a consultant to come in and clean it up. That's all going in the MSW landfill if it's too hot for them to land apply, or it has too much garbage in it, which tends to be the case when they clean it up. I looked at increasing that from 30 to 45 a ton, and then asbestos from 120 to 150. They're not on here.
No, they're not.
It's on the updated one. So, to give you an idea, the asbestos, if you change that tip fee, would raise about $1,200 a year, based on last year's numbers. It's not a huge amount. Asbestos is extremely light, so it's bulky and doesn't take up much. Contaminated soil would raise about an extra $60,000 a year. That can be hit or miss. That could be hundreds of thousands of dollars if you have a big cleanup site, or it could be $5,000 if there are many of them. The demolition debris is about $25,000 a year increase in revenue. So together, they're not a huge amount unless you get a big petroleum contamination site. the one thing with the petroleum, say if you did get a very large one, it's gonna fill that MSW landfill faster, and we're gonna be back into construction again faster. So that's part of the reason I was looking at raising that one the way I was. So those would be my recommendations. The advisory board only looked at the MSW, because that's the only one that directly impacts them at the facilities.
John, anything you want to add? You're on that group.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it wasn't a surprise because I mean, the advisory board is aware of, you know, the challenges that, you know, we've been facing this year. So, I mean, I think they're all, you know, it is what, you know, we
I
have to do
understand
something.
the financial
Yep.
situation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You know, and because I mean, you know, we need to be able to keep the operation going, to be able to take care of, you know, all of our garbage. So, and unfortunately, it comes at a cost.
Well, and I'll add, you know, we talk about the MSW tip fee for garbage, but you know, the facility in Fosston is also processing the recyclables from all the counties for nothing. Beltrami, Hubbard, and I drove down to the recycle facility in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, 2-3 weeks ago, and look, we were looking at equipment down there, and I asked them what they're charging their recycling customers per ton, and they're charging over $90 a ton for their recyclables. So we're not even charging that for garbage, and we're doing that for both. So I mean, you are getting a pretty good value even at 85. It's just it's showing up on the garbage side, not the recycle side.
Right. Yes, like if you, you know, it's just even that 85 splitting it between garbage and recycling, you know, it's a deal.
Is there a motion to proceed with the fee increase?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second, I got a question.
Second by Mark. Questions?
With the increase,
Mhm.
will there be new contractual verbiage put out there?
No, we're still under, I believe we have 14 more years after this that we're under contract with all of the counties. And the contract allows us to change the tip fees as need be. That's part of the reason I think we put so much weight in what the advisory board does, so they have an input. We're not just changing things and they don't have a say in it. And that's I think what makes it work. A lot of the other ones, it's strictly a contract, or they form a joint powers board where they all vote. You know, we own the facility. I think they realize that, but I think they all realize that we need them as much as they need us, and that's what makes it work.
And obviously, Becker County didn't respect that.
Well, we I don't want to get too much into it, but yeah, we had that conversation, so they seem very interested in it right up until the point where they need to talk to us
And
about what the
I'm
plan.
just wondering with the tip fees, if it's possible to put some penalty phase on if the contributing counties don't utilize the service, so that the uh, budgetarily it
Oh,
doesn't fall.
it says we're their sole source. They can't go anywhere else.
And,
Okay.
and I mean, I think our relationship we have with the counties that make up our advisory board, that's not an issue.
Okay.
I don't think it's an issue. The other part of it is, other than the contract saying that, you know, we are their sole source for those services, including the composting, they also have these capital grant program agreements with the MPCA. This says they have a 20-year obligation to follow up on that. So they're locked in. Their facility can't just change.
Off on their own.
Yeah.
All right.
They'll
Thank you.
minimum tonnage too.
We don't have a contract minimum put or pay. We just take what they have. We've had that before, and then that was tried to be enforced, and that just turned everyone against each other. So
And it's-
when you just say it all comes here, no one has any waste that's really falling. If we get a county that starts depopulating, you'll start to see it, but that hasn't been stagnant. We have those, but
Yeah, and I think too, you know, there's accountability because I mean, at our advisory board meetings, you know, John puts together all these reports and, you know, has each individual county listed as far as what, you know, like what they're bringing in. So I mean, you know, everyone else can see if there's a change in a county.
Where's it coming from?
Right, yeah, and then it's, you know, the question of, well, why did this, you know,
Yep.
what's going on here?
Good.
So, I mean, there's accountability.
Okay, we do have a motion on the table. Any further questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Right.
Carries. We have some solid waste updates.
Side question here.
Yes.
Is glass a recyclable item?
Yes.
Why don't you hold that for a minute and a half,
Okay,
okay? So I give program updates.
okay.
So, how much time do I have? I can blow. What's that? A minute 45? Thanks. Wetland credits and the plant mitigation required for the landfill. Chuck, I, and Ron Dennison met earlier and worked out the funding for that ahead of doing the local bond. Those payments will be going through here. It sounds like early next week. We'll put those forward. We finally got all the paperwork signed. There was an error with the DNR contract. We got that fixed. We're currently waiting our MPCA engineer to modify our permit and approve our plans. It's like a broken record. We've asked them to approve the plans for the last 6 years. They don't really have a choice at this point because we're gonna have to build with or without their permit. And that was a conversation I had with MPCA earlier this morning. We look at going into phase 15 construction. It's kind of a 15 plus. We picked up the area to the east that had the wetland impacts, because if we don't build it at this time, it won't be feasible to come back and build later. So that increases that cost. That's already been approved. I look for them to be starting probably about July, mid-July. We'll have a pre-construction meeting next week to go through that. The recycle markets I alluded to have improved. Aluminum is up several $100s a ton, and the paper, I think back in 2022 and 23, paper was going for about $5 a ton. It's up to about $60 a ton right now. So not a high value item, but by weight, it's one of the largest volumes of material we have. So they're improving. Like I said, kind of a grain of salt with that going into the election cycle here, but hopefully that holds up. 2 of our 3 steam customers are doing pretty well. One is indicated they are going to increase production. They're going to run through their outage or most of their outage this summer. So that should yield better revenue there. We have one that seems to be slowly sliding, and I don't know what the issue is there, but the other 2 are more than making up for it right now. But we do need to get new steam contracts out to them next year. We just offered them an extension on the last one, increased it 10%. And there's a issue with how we do that. To me, it punishes the ones buying and not the one not. Getting to Warren's question, I think it is about 90 seconds. We've applied, or Polk has applied for 4 of these MPCA grants that have come out. One of them that was awarded was for a bag opener and glass processing project. So yes, glass is recyclable. The economics are horrible for it. And so we've been using it as cover material. It's got value to the landfill and they've been buying it. Under this project, we would open the bags, which we have a lot of stuff that goes all the way into the incinerators because we punch holes in the bag, but it doesn't open and liberate the contents for the equipment to pick it out. So this would change that. So we should recover more material once that's in place. And then on the glass processing side, we would take the larger fraction, and that actually contains a lot of the plastic and aluminum and steel that's small and goes out with those fines, and that would redirect them back so we can capture them and get the revenue off of that. And it would clean up the grit out of there. And that's what we use as a daily cover. That middle fraction would be mostly glass. And so the glass market is interested in getting that, but they're telling us right now the economics are are kind of ugly, but if we can clean it up, they'll come back, reevaluate it. So if we had to, we can market the glass. I know the state would like to see us market the glass. There's another part to that I'll get to. I'll finish with the grants. Applied for another grant for processing gypsum and porcelain that's currently in our C&D landfills for the region. That got partially funded. And it's questionable whether with the money that they partially awarded to it, whether we can do the project or not. The maximum on those two grants was $850,000 from the state. They only awarded us on the gypsum project $350,000. So our project was rated number 7, the gypsum project. The top 6 all were fully funded, including the one glass and bag opener. Number 7 got what was left over, which is the 350. So it wasn't that they didn't want to fund the project in full. It's the other projects that came in ahead ate up too much of the money. So that's where we're at, and I have to make a decision for the group by the end of next week whether we're going to accept that award or not. The other grant we applied for, the decision's been made on, was for robots. Another part of that CAP project we were looking at before. That one was not awarded. That was for another $850,000. Part of that was to buy some of the equipment that's going to be in the glass and bag opener project. So in a way, it's kind of partially funded. And of course, we installed those 4 microjets that we have on a long-term lease that kind of make up for it. So that project of the projects we applied for was probably the most dispensable one. And then we have one more grant application pending right now. The RFP just closed the end of last week, so I can talk about it. And that's for organics. And so that's taking for residential. So if you have someone at home that wants to compost their food scraps, anywhere else in the state, you have to get a special container. You dump in there and you pay for special service. It gets cost prohibitive. Ramsey and Washington counties have been doing a variation of that. Where they give them the bags and they tell them to drop the bags in the same garbage container their bag garbage goes in. And they use the same garbage hauler. Doesn't know the difference if there's 2 different types of bags or one in the garbage can or cart. They put in the back of their truck and they deliver to the facility. And then they have robots and equipment in to pull the bags out for the resident. So really the resident doesn't have to do anything other than just have the bag and tie the bag off that's supplied. And so that's why we went down to Sioux Falls. They have a robot down there that can work in our application. I went down to Ramsey, Washington County, looked at their system and figured out the pluses and minuses of it. And we've have a proposal in right now asking for 1.5 million from the state of Minnesota through this to fund that project, and that would be 6 countywide. This is a mandate down in the Twin Cities that they do this. It won't be long before it comes up here. Once they make it successful down there, it always follows up here, and we would be ahead of the game. And the bags are about 30 cents a piece, $15 for a year's supply, 1 bag a week with a couple extra in there. It's about as cheap as you're ever going to get a project like that. So I think they're going to fund it. I can't believe they wouldn't, but who knows? Maybe there's 3 other projects that are even better than that. I can't wait to see them if that's the case and they don't fund it. But
still.
I'm hopeful for it.
Should get-
Yep. And so they would cover. It's a $1.8 million project. They would cover 1.5 if he got the full award.
I asked that question because last week as the recycle truck was going by my house in East Grand Forks, I came running out with a bottle at the end and I tried to throw it in the bag as the container was going up and I missed and hit the ground and smashed. But the driver saw the bottle and he was scolding me for, we don't accept glass, we don't accept glass.
A lot because of the economics. A lot of the recycle programs have dropped glass from the recycling program, or they've dropped it from the curbside, and they'll put a container out, and you can put just glass in the container, but you have to drive to the container. They're not picking up curbside, and that's again because it also has some wear issues too. So if you get the real fine grit, it'll contaminate your paper.
Mhm.
Because when they pulp it, if they get that grit in there, it tears apart at the fibers that they're trying to heal together to make your sheet of paper again. So you have seen places drop it. We haven't. And that'll lead into the last thing I'll update on. The Minnesota legislature passed what they call an extended producer responsibility bill. And that requires manufacturers of packaging materials to pay for the entire life cycle of their product. So that covers all of your recyclable items, your cardboard boxes, your glass bottles, your plastic bottles, your tin cans. It covers all the things you don't think about for, to recycle: plastic film, the little juice pouches, banding, shrink wrap, clamshells on your fast food. All of that sort of stuff is required to be paid for by the manufacturer under Minnesota law that just passed. And it has some very specific targets. So they set up what they call a third party organization, or PRO is what they're using. It's Producer Responsibility Organization. And they're supposed to create a plan that gets submitted to the MPCA. It has to be approved on how they're going to accomplish this project. And it goes into effect in a couple of years. And it basically says that these manufacturers are responsible to pay 50% of the cost of all areas of the cost to collect, transport, process, and recycle their materials. And by 2030, they're required to pay 75%, and by 2031 and every year after, 90%. So that would include 90% of our processing costs for recyclables in Fosston. That would include whatever cost the city or the private hauler incurs to get it from your curb to a facility like ours to be processed. And it covers, I'm sure they're going to start out with covering the standard recyclables, and that would be the glass. So where the economics are horrible for glass, and this is a long way getting to your question, right now it doesn't happen because it costs so much to get it there and it's not worth that much. If someone else has to cover the transportation cost, all of a sudden you'll be recycling glass. We'll be recycling glass instead of using its daily cover. So the timing is actually really good that we got that grant to do the glass processing. We'll stockpile that for the next few years at the landfill. And when this thing kicks in, we'll be able to ship not just that year's stuff, but, starting, I'm assuming it'll probably be next year before this equipment gets put in. But we'll have a couple years in reserve to sell. So it's kind of like setting money aside for the future. So there are some things in the future that look rather promising. Now how they define it, there's got to be limits on it. Otherwise there'd be no incentive to ever be economical in what you do, or, have some sort of a fee schedule. Why not just pay us all $500 an hour if they're going to pick up 90% of the cost of it? But so we'll have to see what the details are. But by 2030, the economics for all the recycling programs in the state are going to be vastly different than what they are today.
At the end of the day, it'll be the consumer that'll end up paying for it anyway.
You might not be able to afford the product, but you won't have to worry about recycling it.
Right.
What a trade-off.
I'm obviously being a little facetious there, but I don't imagine the packaging's ever going to cost more than the product, unless you're talking a little candy bar or something. But that's kind of where we're at. But I went well over my minute and a half.
It's all right. I think you answered Warren's question, however.
I did. I think I nailed it in 3 pieces.
Hold on to your glass,
So what am I supposed to do with it now? Just put it in my
Well, you can
garbage?
hang on to it for 3 years.
and then bring it out, and we'll make some money on
Well, I'm not in the Polk County system.
it.
That's true.
What fault is that?
We did try years ago.
We can change that.
I suppose you can, huh?
We did try that years ago.
And I'm not going to try to be reelected.
trying to
I
push a
suppose
rope.
Yes.
I could push it.
Have a conversation anyway. Well, thank you very much, John.
All right.
It'd
Thank
be a
you.
win-win for us.
All right.
Yep. Thanks again.
Annalee Jones is up next.
She's gonna be quick.
She's gonna be quick.
Probably back tonight. Huh?
She will be back tonight.
Well, something to look forward to.
We're just getting started today, folks.
Oh, don't remind us.
I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news.
I already took my aspirin, so
Education, identity, and access management.
Yes. So the Minnesota Department of Education is launching a couple new programs this year. Basically, it is going to be a web-based submission platform. So the county auditor's office has always been responsible for submitting this data to the Department of Education. What has happened in the past is that they provide us a specific spreadsheet, and it is school district specific data that the county provides. We would fill up the spreadsheet, we would get information from the cross county, um, from the other counties that share the school district with us, and then those spreadsheets are emailed into the MDE. They are basically modernizing, for lack of a better word, and it will now be a web-based submission tool. So today, what I need for the county board to do is make a motion to authorize Sam as the main their main contact for Polk County, and then so they refer to it as the identified official with authority for Polk County. MDE recommends that the county auditor acts as this Iowa who is then responsible for delegating the job duties, and then I can submit the forms as a proxy for him. So it's a function that we've always done. They are now requiring us to do it electronically, and they will be requiring us to annually have our county board authorize this individual to perform this job function. So
I move.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions?
So is it making it easier or harder?
right
see.
now right now for me it's making it a little bit harder. I have gone through the process of creating the account, but right now Polk County doesn't have any authorized entities under it, because each school district now has to go in. Once we get your board signature, each school district has to go in and delegate our Iowa
Mm-hmm.
to their account so that we can submit reports on their behalf. MDE is expecting us to be able to submit our July 15th educational reports to them, and I am not optimistic about that deadline, but we're being prepared by getting our designations all taken care of. So
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Any further questions? Sam is enthused about this.
Very
Ready to-
much.
Very much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
all right, and then my second request is
Yes.
a approval for out-of-state travel. I am currently the board chair for the Aumentum Tax User Group through MCCC. This year, I will be attending the National Aumentum Conference in San Antonio in September, serving as a function as the board chair. So, all expenses are paid by MCCC.
Well, that's good.
Yep,
That's the important thing.
In September.
in September.
Move to approve.
All right, we have a motion to
Second.
approve and we have a second by Warren.
Just spin and move things along.
Hey, I told you I was gonna be quick.
Bring us back San Antonio t-shirts.
Yeah.
I'll do my best.
Use your P card to buy 'em.
Yeah.
All
Thank
those
you.
in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later.
Karen is back as promised.
Hi, I'm back with 3 agenda items. The first one is a social worker, child protection specialist replacement request due to a resignation. So I'm looking at board approval to fill a social worker CPS position and to fill any internal subsequent position vacancies occurring because of this action.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mark, is there a second?
Second.
Joan. Anything else?
My next agenda item,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
As opposed, motion carried. Well, what's your second request?
thank you, apologize. My next agenda item is a family-based service provider replacement request. I'm looking at board approval to fill a family-based service provider position and to fill any internal subsequent position vacancies occurring because of this action.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Joan and what did you,
Warren, second.
and Warren second. Any further questions? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carried. Number 3.
Thank you. The third agenda item is a contract we have with Department of Human Services to provide crisis services. It's a 2-year contract from 2023. We discussed earlier at the Social Service Board meeting. The purpose of this contract amendment is to carry over 2023 unspent dollars in the amount of $340,039 into the calendar year 2024. So I'm looking at board approval to be able to amend the contract to carry over the 2023 crisis funding into the 2024 calendar year.
Is there a motion to approve?
That can be done.
With board approval and DHS office.
I will approve it.
Well, spent within the,
Yeah, we need to spend the funds, the carryover, 2023 carryover funds will need to be spent by December 31st, 2024.
okay, Warren and Gary will second. Any other questions on that? $340,000, 39. All those in favor say aye.
I,
Those opposed, motion carried. Is that it?
Yes, it should be noted that that's going to come to you
Oh, for a signature?
for signature. I did make a hard copy, but they notified me today that it'll be sent to you electronically.
I'll look for that. And do we have a procedure for replacing Kathy's resignation on our board? If
Well, you can go and ask people, you can advertise, you can ask for recommendations. Yeah, any of the
I think
three.
that would be appropriate. If anyone here knows of anyone who,
well, basically it comes from the east half of the county. It's
Mhm,
not a western appointment, it's from the
mhm.
east.
I wasn't aware of that.
One suggestion I
Yes,
will make, since it's a committee that's meant to represent, I don't call them users or people of need or groups that are familiar with our system, that you can keep that in consideration when you look. Our composition has been, in my view, relatively the same. You might want to,
Change it up.
there's other opportunities out there, I think, to consider.
well, Joan and Paul could maybe get together and suggest some recommendations and bring that to the board and obviously involve Karen. Okay,
Sounds
very good.
Thank you.
Because we meet next month. It would be nice to
Thanks.
move on that. Ron is next.
Yeah, great. And there it is. I hope I have a fairly easy item for you here. What
Well,
we're
good.
looking for is we did get our retired accounting officer who does really our banking function for us,
Yeah.
replaced with Heather Shippey, and she's been training now since early to mid-April, so she's on the job anyway. Just wanted official action. You know, the banks want to see that governing body approving the signatory people, and so that's what she'll need to be. She'll need to be on the vast majority of the Polk County accounts. So this motion I'm asking for is to do that. Heather, if you want any other details, she's been with the county about 1.5 years. She started as an eligibility worker upstairs in January of last year, and then she moved to us in April after Arla's retirement. We'd like to get her signing on the thing so she can pick up the load of the banking function.
All right, is there a motion to approve Heather?
I'll make it.
Okay, by Warren,
Second.
second by Mark. Anything else? Any, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Great, thank you. And then I thought, since I'm here, I mean, I meant to get some, been really hectic over there. I meant to get you some data on the budget and then whatnot before this time, even for this day, but I didn't get it on the agenda, but I did yesterday afternoon, kind of whip together our classic budget comparison report and our cash balances. And I know they're not on the agenda. I'm not going to talk about them. I was going to thinking I could maybe leave them with Chuck. You could help yourself to a paper copy or let us know and I'll get them out in the email. But I just felt like it's been a while, the whole year actually. So I thought I have it. Didn't take me long to get them ready yesterday, but
Either that or we meet July 2nd.
yeah, I'll get you some June stuff in July.
Let's
I
do
thought,
that.
with some mid stuff in July. So, all right, I'll get. Thank you.
Thank you much.
Yeah.
Moving right along. Sarah Reese.
Hello.
I provided you with a good
No.
laugh, right?
The committee's been working.
I figured you'd appreciate that.
Yes, we have been busy. Very, very busy. So we are so excited. Sarah, who's been here with me before, and myself, and Eliza. Eliza is our Public Health Corps member. She was also one of our very first Youth Advisory Board members a few years ago. And so we have been working together with the Polk County Opioid Advisory Council to put out the community RFP for organizations. And we, of course, went through the whole process of identifying the council that represented our county, to having an exploration about the needs of our county. And we did assessments and conversations and all sorts of things in between. And ultimately, in April, as we've talked about before, we put out our request for proposals. And today I'm so excited to be here to recommend to you, as the Chief Health Strategist, the Attorney General's document or MOA describes public health's role as the Chief Health Strategist. So that's why it's here. And one of our roles is to work with the council and to make a recommendation to you based on the best practices around prevention, treatment, recovery, and harm reduction. So that's what I'm going to do today. And I'm just going to talk through how we got to this recommendation. So this is a recommendation that was reviewed and approved by the council last week and then comes to you as my recommendation. So to back out of the action request, I put together this document. If you are curious where we're at with our fund, it's required that we have a designated fund for this. So you can see the disbursements that have been made to this fund based on the year that they've come in. It is very sporadic how they come in and when they come in. So this is what we got. It's not very predictable, but nonetheless, we're happy to have $550,000 odd dollars in this fund. And as we've been going through our intentional planning process, now we're ready to make some recommendations to you. So let's break that down a little bit. So here's the fund balance as it states. I rounded things to the nearest dollar just for sake of looking at numbers. We'll be recommending 6 applications for full funding. We'll recommend 2 applications for some follow-up and consultation. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. The council, based on the Polk County priorities that were assessed through our local survey and conversations, there were a couple of priorities that came through as Polk County priorities, and none of the RFPs from organizations were able to address those priorities, and they were areas of subject matter expertise for public health folks. And so we did build those into this recommendation as well. And then this last piece here is around our future council members. So at the end of this year, we'll reach out to our current council members and ask if they wish to continue for future years. We'll move from monthly to quarterly meetings. And what this is really meant to do is we have individuals that are on our council that are there for work purposes. They have kind of a dual role. We also have members that are there as community members. They have lived experience and they maybe either have to take off from work or they're currently unemployed or whatever the situation may be. And there's been a few barriers to participation. And so having a stipend and mileage available will help make their participation a little bit easier if that's needed. So it won't be across the board. The council did discuss this at length, but would recommend that a stipend and mileage be available if someone with lived experience or what have you requests that. So that's just an acknowledgement for their time. So the recommendation, I'm going to walk through the details of this, and then I'm going to circle back to this broad recommendation. So a little bit about the RFP, just to reacquaint you. It was open for a month from April to May 15th. There was categories that we had identified as priorities that citizens in Polk County helped us to identify. And then also the Minnesota Attorney General, of course, had their memorandum of agreement and the strategies that were recommended in there, all around those 4 areas or categories that I mentioned earlier. There was a written application that was required to be submitted, and based on how the organization pointed, they were offered to provide us with a virtual presentation so we could get to learn more about their project idea and make sure that we had all of our ducks in a row, if you will. The application team, a review team, was made up of representatives from the council and also from Polk County Public Health. And the council, of course, made recommendations to Sarah and I, and then we're presenting those to you for your consideration. So to break that down a little bit, these are the applications that we're recommending. So these 6 right here are recommendations. You can see on the left-hand side, the organization, the middle column being the recommended funding, and then on the far right, a very high-level project summary. We did have a few entities across the county that had inquired about funding, but it wasn't the right time for various reasons. And so we were really looking at types of projects, partners, work that's been in development. We looked at meeting the needs of different age groups, of different areas across the county. So there's a variety of different parameters that we considered when reviewing the applications. So these applications are recommended for funding at these various recommended funding levels. You can see what they're for. I can answer any questions you have about them. LUMA's recommendation or request is for a care coordinator and a peer recovery specialist focused in the criminal justice for individual criminal justice involved persons. Peer recovery specialist is something that's nationally recommended and something that we haven't had before, but as part of our Reaching Rural initiative was identified as a priority. And so we were happy to see that come through. The Crookston Youth Foundation, or the Cove, they have an initiative that they're planning around peer-to-peer youth recovery support. So it's not in the form of treatment, but it's in the form of support. And our school and community partners have long talked about youth support. So excited to see that happen. Their intention is really to serve young people beyond the Crookston city limits. So they have some creative initiatives around transportation and so forth to be able to provide that support that's not otherwise available. New Heights Elementary School made a proposal. This is a one-time proposal around a sensory room, and this is to support students specifically. It really can support any student, but around students who are impacted by drug addiction, specifically those who had prenatal or early childhood exposure. There's a lot of emotional emotional regulation opportunities so that they can be the best learners and be successful in their educational environment. And it is an approved expense in the MOA. Tri-County Community Corrections requested funding for an SUD or substance use disorder project coordinator and harm reduction supplies. So that's great. That was also recommendations relative to the federal Reaching Rural Initiative, that the planning project that happened last year. Tri-Valley Opportunity Council requested work around the Family Resource Center and their work with Polk County Social Services, or their partnership, specifically focusing on prevention and harm reduction and concrete supports to support families across the county. The University of Minnesota Crookston requested a wellness coordinator and peer health educators. Again, this is a best practice, and peer health educators then would continue into the future from a sustainability perspective. Then there's these two applications down below, one to the Care and Share and one to the New American Integration Center. And these are partners partners in the community, and we would, based on the application that was submitted, we feel like there is a promising project and initiative, and there was follow-up and consultation that would be needed to make sure that it met all of the criteria. So from a health equity perspective, we did not want to exclude them as a partner in this important work because we saw their idea as being very valuable. And when I say I mean the review team saw their idea as being very valuable, and yet we needed more information to be able to have that contract be in place. So we wanted to acknowledge the important work that they do and that they proposed, and also have follow-up and consultation leading into that. And so that is the recommendations for the 8 projects. This is a recap of the piece related to Polk County Public Health that the council also reviewed. So in 2022 and 2023, we did not have opioid-related funds in our budget. We did it, all those things, as part of our public health role and part of our role within alcohol, tobacco, and drug prevention. In 2024, we have a little over 19,000 approved in our budget for this year. And then the council also discussed how this is just 3% on top of this. So this is for 2025, doing all of these things. Some of the same things we're doing now, but there's also pieces listed in here, for example, community education. And the most notable one here you'll see is around community naloxone or Narcan distribution. And this is an area where the council was waiting to see if there would be a community organization that would offer this as their service. And unfortunately, that did not happen. And yet the council felt like it was a very strong need, and it was an area that we have expertise in our agency. So you will see a little bit of time for the staffing part of that, but mostly this expense is for actually the purchase of Narcan or naloxone nasal spray. We can access the injectable form at no cost, but really in reality, the nasal spray is what is needed. And we're looking at 250 doses, so we're not talking about hundreds, and we're not talking about thousands of doses, but we do also want to be mindful that in the past 3 months, we have had several requests for community naloxone training from libraries, from hotels, from banks, a variety of different community partners. So we are also wanting to be responsive to our community needs. So in the grand scheme of things, some is on the grants management and council facilitation, and then a small portion for partnering with our schools and working with the community. I think that's it. So I'm going to make you a little, I'm going to circle back up here. So this is in a nutshell laying everything out, our fund balance, the recommended partners, and the 8 applications, the piece to public health, the council members. That would leave 69,433 remaining. I anticipate just using an average of what we've got in these last 2 years, 85,000. That's a conservative estimate. It might be more than that, but essentially that would leave us with 154,433 as of next July. And so the council would come back between now and then with some recommendations of like, Do we continue supporting our current applications? Do we find new partners? Like, what do we want to do? So that would be something the council would explore and make a recommendation between now and then to you. You may have heard across the state, there's been conversation about how is opioid funds being distributed. And so we think this is a great strategy. In my original ask when I came here, you might remember that I had said $350,000 for the RFP process. And we have found that that it would be reasonable to offer more than that because we've found organizations that meet that criteria.
A lot of these applications are for personnel, which means it'll be ongoing.
We were very clear in the application and when we did the virtual presentations that this funding is only for 1 year. So it's for planning, for getting their ducks in a row, for getting the pieces. We absolutely did not guarantee anything beyond a year. The one caveat to that is there were some initiatives that because of the nuance of how all their funding streams work, that work may have like a no cost extension to December, but not beyond that. That also would be consistent with our reporting period because we have to report annually to DHS about how the funds are used.
There've been a lot of concerns about auditing funds
Absolutely.
go out, obviously with the feed children. Does your committee take a role in that, or do the commissioners, county somehow take responsibility for the auditing that those funds are properly used for what?
So when we reviewed all of the applications through the written application and the virtual presentation, we matched the content of their application and presentation with allowable expenses in the MOA. So that direct correlation is already there. And then the organizations will be required to do reporting to us. And so
To the committee or to
to
you?
public health, yes. So the contract will be held under public health. And so we will be reviewing the content to make sure that it's an applicable expense and that it meets the criteria for funding. Mhm. Yes.
It's a lot of responsibility.
Yes. Also, yes.
Understand.
But we've made very clear connections. So if folks are doing what they've said that they've done in the application, like I'm very confident. And life also happens. So if things, are different, then we'll have to deal with that, as that happens. But yes, only things that are approved expenses can be included. And we did have some applications where we needed to reduce the amount of recommended funding because they didn't meet all of the criteria for funding. So that was absolutely reviewed and considered.
I look at this list and it's, very, very heavily Crookston related and, there's nothing on the east side.
So we did have a couple of organizations from East Polk, which I can't speak to the details of that, but we did have a few organizations from Eastern Polk County that reached out to us and said that they're very interested, but now is not the right time because of other things happening in their organization. We also had situations where individuals didn't think they had the capacity to meet the time frame. And so that is one of the reasons that we're doing the community naloxone piece. That's one of the reasons that we're going to do this. We're going to offer for the schools to do some of those pieces because they're just the workforce isn't there. And so that's how we're going to also expand that reach. So yes.
Because it's not that we don't have a problem.
Absolutely. And we discussed that at great lengths, like looking across the county, but I also can't make an application come that, you know what I mean? Like we did a lot of consultation to promote it and support it, but we didn't have We didn't have applications that met the criteria. Because we did establish a minimum score on the written application, so the application couldn't be considered if they didn't meet the minimum score. And that was a minimum score of 60 out of 100. So,
Okay.
but yes, we have discussed that. And I think that's an opportunity where we've said, so let's just talk about Foston as an example. We've talked around the community Narcan distribution, partnering with the pharmacy, partnering with the hospital and clinic, partnering with the law enforcement, so that it's not just public health, but we'll be still working in the community. So we'll have touch points. We'll provide the resource for it. So absolutely. And Macintosh and so on and so forth.
Any other further questions? If not, I'll ask for action on the motion of 480,950 as requested.
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Mark. Anything else for that? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Hey, it's a lot of work.
It's all good. It's all good.
That it is.
Narcan, have you heard of any generic on the street Narcan that's out there?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, there's always things, but I haven't heard of
My
a.
sister's in the medical field out in the Phoenix area. Yeah. We talked over the weekend. She said they're finding, EMTs are finding a lot out there on drug overdoses when they show up. Somebody's administered Narcan and
Interesting.
they don't know. Nobody's confessing, and there's,
Yeah.
2 or 3 people around, the recipient,
Yeah.
and nobody's confessing or saying what's going on, but it's generic and it's
Well,
no label, no,
Interesting.
you
I talked to Dr. Sens quite a bit, and she's actually on our council. Like, she participates very regularly. So I'll check in with her. But I haven't heard that. But that would be good to know, because when we do community education, like, people need to know what they're using, right? We have to be informed about the things that we're using or what we think we're using. So no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, I think that concludes everything on our agenda. We'll take a recess.